Right, Charlotte, I think we're now ready to start the meeting. So good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Education, Skills and Scrutiny Committee on the 28th of March 2021. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Can I please remind you to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? In addition, I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated, which we're all becoming very well aware of at the current time. Your microphone should be switched to mute unless you're speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate via the chat function or by raising your electronic hands by Teams. I assume that you will have all read the paperwork before us, not that we've got much today, but we have got the minutes and the forward work programme prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues with the systems. When asking a question, can you please indicate page numbers if it's related to the minutes, or refer to a specific item that will be brought up in the verbal items on the agenda. First item of the agenda is to do a roll call. I'm Councillor Sonia Reynolds, I'm the chair and I am present. I will now call on Charlotte, the Democratic Services Officer, to take the roll call. Charlotte?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. So if I just start with yourself, I'll mark you as present. And then if I move on to Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Yes, Present, Charlotte.
I've had apologies from Councillor Crowley. Councillor Sian Harris. Jane Jones. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Marcia Spooner. I know she was having difficulty with her Wi-Fi, so I'll mark her as down with apologies as well. But she might join. If she does, I'll ask her to say she's present. Councillor Rebecca Phillips. I've had apologies from Mark Prothero. Councillor Suzanne Renkes.
Present.
Councillor Anthony John Richards.
Present.
Dave Whiteblock.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Rob Wood.
Present.
Joe Hale.
Present, Charlotte.
Bree Caddick. Marie, are you there?
Yeah.
I can see you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
I don't know what I've done. Thank you. Present, Charlotte. Sorry.
It's okay. Roberto De Benedictis. No. And apologies from Adam and Moore. Linda Newman.
Yes, present, Charlotte.
Councillor Rob Jones.
Yes, present, Charlotte.
Thank you. And then Councillor Alan Lockyer. No. Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Charlotte.
And then officers, Chris Millis.
Present, Charlotte.
Paul.
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. Hayley Levy.
Hayley's given her apologies, but I'm here in her place. It's Zoe Ashton.
Perfect, thank you. Mike Daly.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Page.
Yes, I'm here.
Ian Miller.
Yes, present.
And is there any other officers that I've missed at all? No. Is there any members that I've missed at all? No. Chair, that's everyone then. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. In that case, we move on to item 2, which Chair's announcements. There are none. And therefore item 3, declarations of interest. We have mainly, apart from the minutes, a verbal item. What we're suggesting, unless Charlotte's had further information from legal, is that if an issue arises which promotes a specific interest for you, that you declare that when you start speaking. Otherwise, we're all covered by our as governors of schools anyway. But if you have a specific item and a specific interest on that item you're raising, please declare it when you start speaking. Right, minutes of the meeting of the 18th of March are for approval. Does anybody have anything to raise on those minutes, and can we have a proposer to approve, please?
I'd move, Chair. Accurate.
Seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Then we've approved those minutes. And in that case, we move on to the verbal update, which is the main item for this meeting, looking at a verbal impact, the impact of COVID on Education, Lifelong Learning and Leisure Department, and a verbal update on the services within the Education Department, along with a brief overview of the strategy going forward. This item will be for noting and for information. So can I ask who's starting?
I am, Chair.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, officers.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. Just to give you a brief update and an overview first before I invite the officers to speak about their areas. We've just started the joint inspection today for 1 full week, which is a JICPA. So it's got the abbreviation, if you like. So it's the Joint Inspection of Child Protection. So that's 5 inspectorates are joining us this week virtually. So they represent Estin, CIW, Prison Service, Health and Police. And we've started today with a presentation to them, which was an hour and a half, setting out basically how we support those young people and children that are at risk of being exploited. So that's their main focus for the whole week that they're with us. So a lot of my officers are caught up in that, Chair. So we've asked 5 officers today to just give a brief overview of their current service. You don't need me to tell you how difficult the last 16 months have been for education and all the services that support education around education, leisure and lifelong learning. So if I start, please, to invite Zoe to give a brief overview. And if I could ask, Chair, that all questions are kept till all the officers have presented. Otherwise, we may run out of time.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity of coming to talk to you this afternoon. My name's Zoe Ashton. I'm the Principal Educational Psychologist and work as part of the Inclusion Service, which includes educational psychology, school-based counselling, additional learning needs support team, wellbeing and support for learning. So in addition to supporting children and young people with additional learning needs, we're also supporting schools and the local authority to prepare for the new Additional Learning Needs Act, which many of you will know comes into force in September. I'll give you a brief overview of the progress that we're making in relation to ALN reform, and then I'll update briefly on our service areas within inclusion before Rhian Miller gives an update specifically in relation to the school-based counselling service. So in terms of ALN reform, many of you will be aware that the current system for supporting children and young people with additional learning needs is changing, and from the 1st of September, we will be running 2 parallel systems over a 3-year implementation process. The new system obviously will be transformational, it'll be collaborative, offer a fair and transparent system and put the child and young person and their family at the heart of all decision making. And this is really welcomed and a very positive way forward. However, this new system does have its challenges. So we know that at the moment, Welsh Government still have yet to finalise documentation and any implementation plans going forward, and the commencement notices are still being discussed between transformation leads across regions and Welsh Government. So that's posing a challenge for us at the moment. Welsh Government have said that the new system will be cost neutral. However, we know that this won't be the case, and its success will be very much dependent upon us reviewing our local ALN funding mechanisms. All individual development plans, or IDPs, are now going to be open to appeal, and that's inevitably going to be challenging for schools and for the local authority. And we now have much far shorter timescales to adhere to, both at a school level and a local authority level. So previously it was 26 weeks in order to make decisions around ALN and put plans in place, and that's now reduced to 12 weeks. So there are a number of challenges, but I just want to offer you reassurance that we are preparing for these challenges. So in terms of updating as to how we're moving things forward. So members within the Inclusion Service have been running a number of head teacher workshops across the local authority. We've also been running workshops for all of our ANCOs, and they've been very well received. We've also accessed legal training for all staff within schools. That includes head teachers as well as ANCOs and local authority professionals, outlining the new system that we are fast approaching from September and the legal implications of moving into that new system. So we've been very mindful of needing to update schools and staff around those changes. I mentioned earlier around funding or reviewing our ALN funding mechanisms within the local authority, and we do feel that that's a key process that we need to take forward. So we are meeting with finance, we are meeting with senior management and having those discussions around reviewing our ALN funding formula potentially over the coming months. We're all producing new documentation in preparation for empowering schools and getting them ready for September. As I said earlier, we were still waiting for documentation to be received from Welsh Government, and that hasn't been received as yet. So we are moving ahead in developing relevant documentation in preparation for getting our schools ready. Reviewing all of our processes and procedures that are currently in place around supporting the needs of children and young people with ALN, and developing new decision-making models which aligns with the code and the new changes. We're also working to align services within inclusion, and particularly within early years. So many of you will be aware that the new code specifies a much wider age range from 0 to 25. So we are working really closely with our colleagues within the early years sector and trying to align services as much as we can over the coming months and putting systems in place there, which is really positive. One or two other things that we're doing in terms of our operational processes. Welsh Government have specified that all individual development plans should be produced wherever possible electronically, and we need an IDP platform in order to develop and issue those as a local authority. So we've commissioned the services of a company called Casey, and we have been working really closely with them, who are currently building for us that digital online platform, and that's going really well. And we're also working to digitalise all of our current ALN documentation into an electronic format, so that that can be shared more easily with schools and with parents and carers. So just to summarise, from the 1st of September this year, all preschool children will be in the new system. All detained children and young people, fortunately we don't have many, will be in the new system. Any newly identified children with ALN will be part of the new system. Any pupils who are in PRUs, of which we don't have any, and who are dual registered, so those are children and young people who access our assessment places, will be in the new system. And any children and young people who are currently within the School Action or School Action Plus system who fall within one of Welsh Government's kind of mandated cohorts, and these are nursery 1 and 2, year 1, year 3, year 5, year 7 and year 10 will all fall into the new system from September. There is a word of caution with that. Welsh Government have specified that a parent of a child or young person who doesn't necessarily fall within those mandated cohorts can make a request to move into the new system at any time. So that may potentially put additional pressure on some school staff as well. All looked after children in these cohorts will also be in the new system where they require an IDP, and these IDPs will be local authority maintained IDPs. So there is a lot of work to do, but we are working really hard behind the scenes to ensure that schools will be ready to start the implementation process in September. Obviously, with COVID, schools' priorities over the last year has been around safety and ensuring that children and young people's needs are met within school settings as safely as they have been able to, and to access remote education wherever possible. And rightly so, that has been schools' priorities over the last year. So really what we're trying to do is kind of play catch up a little bit in relation to our ALN reform implementation processes and plans. We have been working very hard behind the scenes to get things ready for schools, and now we are working really closely with our schools to ensure that the right processes and procedures will be in place from September. In terms of team updates, just very briefly, Educational Psychology Service are continuing to work remotely and go into schools where essential, and this will continue until the end of term. And in addition to the work that they're doing around ALN reform and ALN, they're also working hard to address issues around staff and pupil well-being. So this, I'm sure everybody will agree, has been a real kind of critical element of everybody's sort of work over the last years around supporting not only the well-being really of our children and young people, but also school staff who have equally felt under pressure over the last year, so that we are working towards that as well. In terms of our additional learning needs support service, we're still fulfilling our statutory obligations in the current system whilst getting ready for the new system. In terms of performance indicators, they have fallen slightly this year, but that again has been attributed to COVID. So the fact that where we're requesting specialist advice from professionals, which include health, for example, if health have been unable to provide advice or conduct assessments within healthcare settings, then that has had a knock-on impact in terms of them meeting their timescales in terms of getting advice into us as a local authority, and then consequently our performance indicators are slightly down. We do anticipate when things return to normal that obviously our performance indicators will go back up. Other teams, so in terms of our wellbeing team, they have been producing outdoor learning packs. Activities have been provided for schools to support pupils' wellbeing, which has been really well received. Forest Schools leader training is being carried out this week for 8 of our schools. And an introduction to outdoor learning training has been completed by a number of our schools, and more are booked in for the autumn term, and the feedback has been really positive. And just one or two few other things. So the Educational Psychology Service and the Wellbeing Team and school-based counsellors are working collaboratively with colleagues in health and also other local authority professionals in order to support schools and embed in the whole school approach to wellbeing as well. So I think they're the key sort of updates that I just wanted to share with you today, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to, Professor Rhian can come in next, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to update you today. We really appreciate the opportunity to come here today. So I think there are 2 key things to update you on. The first is how we've been working since the beginning of the pandemic. And then the second then is to let you know about some new initiatives that have been running over the last year. So when the pandemic hit last year, 2 weeks prior to lockdown, the school-based counselling team spent that time really getting in touch with all of the children and young people they were working with currently to gain consent and contact details to be able to continue their therapeutic work throughout lockdown. So through that commitment from the team, we were able to, lockdown happened on the Friday, and we were able to be up and running by the Monday in terms of therapeutic delivery. So our children and young people, for the vast majority, did not experience a gap in their provision. It's been really interesting this week because, or last week rather, the Welsh Government statistics for school-based counselling across Wales were released last week. And I think it's quite helpful to look at our own statistics in the context of those as well. So what the statistics show is that there was, across Wales, there was a decrease in terms of the children and young people seen for counselling of 2,087. Okay, so across Wales, 2,087 less children were seen across Wales in the year 1920. However, in Neath Talbot, we saw an additional 49 because our figures rose from 502 to 551. What that looks like in terms of sessions delivered. So in the year 1920, we delivered 3,654 sessions compared to the previous year where we delivered 2,589. So there's an increase there of 1,065 sessions, and that accounts for a 42% increase in delivery of service. So as you can appreciate, during a very challenging time for everybody, where everybody's going through a global pandemic, including all of our therapists, we still managed to achieve that. So obviously we're very proud of that in Neath Talbot. In addition to that, then, we also developed a primary parents helpline. And the purpose of this helpline was really to support parents of primary school children in supporting the emotional well-being of their children. Okay, so that started in a very informal way, but then gradated to whereby we produced programs. So we produced a parent program and a parent-child program where therapists were able to deliver these online with our families. We also developed a school staff helpline. And the purpose of that, there was a consultative element, still running, there's a consultative element whereby staff are able to ring and discuss any concerns they may have about children and young people they're working with, and also a wellbeing element where staff can ring and discuss any issues around their wellbeing. So that was the way we worked throughout lockdown. Obviously, when schools were back open and it was safe to do so in line with risk assessments, we were able to go back onto school site because it is very, very challenging to work with children and young people remotely once they're back in school. Okay. In addition to that, then, we've set up a new child therapy service with the help of some grant funding from the Whole School Grant. So previously to last year, we've been restricted to working with Year 6 and upwards only, in line with the Schools and Organisations Act. So, as you can imagine, a great source of frustration for the team and understandably for our schools as well. So since the last academic year, we've set up a new service. It now serves years 1 to 6. It's been received very, very well. It's been utilised very, very well, and that will then continue then into the new academic year. It's a different model. It's a more systemic model. We're engaging families more in the process as well as schools, and that's been received very well as well. To pick up on something that we talked about earlier as well, around looking at our staff wellbeing, obviously in line with the whole school framework, staff are instrumental in facilitating the emotional wellbeing of our children and young people. So bearing that in mind, we've been running a supervision pilot this year. So 3 of our comprehensive schools have had access to supervision to assist them with their wellbeing and how they facilitate the emotional wellbeing of our pupils. So that's the evaluation for the pilot is being pulled together now. And then we'll be reviewing that and looking at how we can create a sustainable model and support our schools in supporting the emotional wellbeing of their staff going forward. So in a nutshell, it's, as you can imagine, for every department, it's been a very, very challenging year. But despite the challenges, school-based counselling has really excelled really in terms of bucking the trend with regard to how school-based counselling has run across Wales.
Thank you, Rhian. We're going to move on now, Chair, to John Burge. Give an update, please.
Afternoon, members. As you know, I manage the school and the family support team, and that's an umbrella term, that is, for a number of different services that fall within that service. I've got the education welfare service, school governors, I've got the safeguarding team, and about 5 or 6 different services altogether. So I'm going to touch on a few of them for you this afternoon, because I know you've got some keen interest in some of them directly, and I report frequently to you on attendance and other such matters. So I'm going to start with the education welfare service. I'm very proud of this service. I'm proud of all my staff that have pulled out the stops over the last 12, 15 months working with our schools and our young people. The commitment and the energy that they have given in supporting the individuals has been immense. And I'm really, I'm happy to be here this afternoon and tell you that I am proud of these people. The Education Welfare Service, for example, whilst some of us have been working from home and I'm in the house looking after myself and being safe now, these people have been out from day one. They have not regressed. They have been at the front line. They have been knocking doors. And whilst they can't go in people's houses, they've still been seeing our families and our vulnerable pupils in the garden, at the doorstep, and they've been checking up and acting on behalf of schools to making sure that individuals are being seen, that they are safe, and that they are still engaging with schools. So I am proud of them, and I want you to know that as well, that they're doing a brilliant job. But in regards to the Education Welfare Service, they started off by saying, what's that? Oh, Paul Walker. They started off at the beginning of lockdown. They were out there and they were delivering some of the grab bags for some of the free school meals children. They were delivering books on behalf of schools and stationery. They were delivering some of the electronic devices, as well as other colleagues in the authority, to making sure that those children who were digitally excluded had access to some of the technology. And they were knocking doors and doing those garden visits to some of those pupils who did fall silent at the beginning of lockdown last year to schools, regardless of schools trying to ring and trying to keep in contact with some of these individuals. They almost fell off the radar. So the EWOs were out there and they were knocking those doors. Attendance at the moment, up to last week, is currently hovering at around about 90%. Now, members will know, because the amount of reports that I bring to this committee, that's lower than normal. That is clearly down from pre-COVID times. However, we continue with COVID. We continue with numbers of pupils self-isolating. They are starting to rise again. It is no surprise, given the fact that the First Minister has said last week that we are at the beginning of a third wave. So we are seeing a little bit of the hockey stick effect again after Easter. Attendance was really good as pupils started to return full time, all pupils from all year groups. But now in the last fortnight, I'm getting daily now reports from schools of COVID issues. Whilst we're not going to be having a conversation this afternoon specifically about COVID, I do want to reassure you that I meet twice a week with Public Health Wales and with the regional TTP team, and it is not in school transmission that is causing the issue. It is community transmission that is being brought into schools. And we met with our head teacher colleagues last week, and it's important that message is across so individuals understand. I do feel sometimes there is a little bit of a public perception that schools are hotbeds for spreading the COVID virus. But we analyse through Public Health Wales and TTP every single positive case we get, and the in-school transmission is minuscule. It is all being brought in from community-related activities. So from our 21,000 pupils that we've got on roll, at the moment we are down to just 20 pupils that have not engaged and not returned to school since last September at all. That's about Christmas time. That was up to nearly 200. So we have been working with every one of these families to try and find out, get to the root cause of why they're not coming back, why they've not engaged. We are down to 20. It was on the news this morning across the UK, if anybody tuned into breakfast news. So this is a matter that is being experienced across the United Kingdom. We're still working with those 20. The principal reasons, because that's bound to be a question that somebody will ask, the principal reasons are down to COVID concerns. We've got some parents who still believe that schools are not safe places and they don't want to send their children back. We've got a couple of children who were formally shielding. Now, shielding has been lifted officially, but there's still some concerns that parents don't want to send their children back because of medical issues, or they feel that maybe somebody in the family is having treatment for cancer, for example, and they just don't want to take the risk of introducing the virus into the family. And some of those reasons, of course, we understand. But let me be clear as well, there are still some pupils out there and some families who are school refusers. So there is no medical reason why these children should be in school, should not be in school. There are no reasons given that that warrant approval of absence. They are simple school refusers. We have had our punitive punishment element, if you like, of prosecuting and issuing fixed penalty notices suspended for the time being. Welsh Government have asked that local authorities do not take punitive action against parents, that we continue to work and encourage attendance, which we do, as I've highlighted to you. And some of our parents know that we're not prosecuting at the moment, and some of my EWOs are facing abuse at the doorstep. They are being sworn at. I had one recently who was spat at, and that was reported to the police. That isn't usual, let me be fair, but that is a case that has happened in the last couple of weeks. And we are getting comments, such as, "I know my rights, I know you can't take any action against me at the moment," and the door gets slammed in the face, But that is from a small minority. But you need to know that at the moment we've got about 20 children who have not engaged at all, but we continue to work with them. This year, since September, the Education Welfare Service, I've asked for some statistics for you, have made more than 1,200 house or garden visits, as we're now calling them, because of the risk assessment. So I think that's a real great figure, of showing their commitment and the work that they've been doing. And they've made touching on 6,000 communications to our families, to our pupils. And that's emails and that's phone calls, regular welfare checks and making sure that everybody's okay. So some big numbers there. The next subject I wanted to address to you is free school meals. You will be aware that we're currently paying individuals for free school meals where they self-isolated and during the lockdown and also during school holidays. Payments that this authority has made out to eligible free school meal families at the moment has just topped £4 million. So that's a significant amount of money. And as members will know, we continue to make those payments to children that are subject to the self-isolation requirement and throughout the school holiday period. So August is coming up now, so if there's any concerns there, the payments will continue throughout. And Welsh Government has confirmed that for us. The next subject area that I manage is school governors. And most members are a governor of a school in Neath Talbot. And some of you would have been in the chair and the vice chair of governors meeting recently when I spoke and when it was raised about training. One of the winners of the lockdown process, I suppose, I think is governor training. Governor training has, attendance at governor training has rocketed over the last 12 months, which is great news. Prior to lockdown, the last full year we had 415 governors attend training. The figure so far up to now, we've had 527 governors attend training. We've still got 4 training sessions left to run before the end of the school year, with 72 governors already booked on. So if we can just maintain for those 4 sessions and those 70 odd, we will beat our record by 200 governors attending training, which I'm always pleased about. It only can be a good thing. I did mention in the last meeting that I can see a future for online training for governors now moving ahead, but a blended approach. We are getting feedback that some governors, principally governors who work, want to continue attending the training online, but we're also getting feedback from some governors that they value the face-to-face training, which gives them the opportunity, gives individuals the opportunity to ask probing questions, to work in workshops, in small groups of 2s and 3s, which you can't replace by online training. And we understand that too. So the training programme moving forward, of course, subject to what's going to happen now in the autumn term about whether people can get back together or not, we'll have to look and adjust accordingly, will contain our blended approach of some online training, some face-to-face training, and we're going to try and satisfy everybody's requirements for training to encourage more people to attend as we move forward. Elective home education, members will know I've presented a report or two in the past regarding this subject matter. Not to confuse that with home tuition. Elective home education, just by way of a reminder, is where parents have decided to take children off roll completely. So they're not attached or not tied to any school whatsoever. Parents choose that they want to educate their children completely themselves. And that's different to home tuition or remote learning, where schools continue then to provide that work principally through Hub, and then that they get fed back to school and they can do the marking there. There has been an increase in the number of children that have deregistered. We're currently up to about 250 pupils that have deregistered. That's gone up by about 100 since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. A number of different reasons have been given. Again, some have deregistered because they feel that schools are not safe and their children can't attend schools, and they prefer to deregister and home educate them themselves. Some have enjoyed the experience, parent and child, of home educating through the early stages of lockdown, and have decided that this is a choice that they wish to go down for the future, and they wish to continue the home educated approach. We work with all of these families. We've got a dedicated elective home educated coordinator, which meets regularly with individual families. We are hopeful that once COVID starts settling down and normality returns, that some of these pupils will re-engage with schools and come back into the system. This is certainly not unique to Neath Talbot. We meet frequently with our colleagues around Wales, and the number is mirrored in all 22 authorities in Wales. The numbers have shot up everywhere. So I'm not worried personally about our figures, although we still got a lot of work to do with these families, with home educated groups that operate in our area, to see how we can support them, and are there individuals there that we can get back into the school system? Are they better served in the school system? And finally, the last subject I want to talk to you about is safeguarding. Safeguarding arrangements continue to be robust throughout, whether children are in school or not. We have supported schools throughout the pandemic remotely. We have continued with our rollout of safeguarding training successfully via Teams. So all of our DSPs, designated safeguarding persons in school, have had the training, they've had the support that they would have had we been in the Civic Centre. Multi-agency meetings have continued remotely, and our safeguarding peer review programme has recently recommenced. We've done one virtually, which was a good success. We engaged with one of our primary schools and we had good feedback there. We're not sure yet for the autumn term whether virtual safeguarding reviews will continue, or whether we'll be in a better position, given the figures, given the relaxation of the rules at the moment, whether we can return to more face-to-face. We will have to assess that over the summer period. We have plan A, we have plan B, we're ready to go, whichever one it is going to be in the bag in readiness. So that's the update from the School and Family Support Team. Happy to take any questions later if there are any.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chair. Paul, I'd like you to go next, please, but we'll need to keep it to 5 minutes because Mike's following you, and then we need questions as well, please.
Not a problem, Chris. Afternoon, all. Like John, my area, there was a number of different sections. It's culture, leisure, libraries, country parks, Celtic leisure, etc. If I can start, Chair, with the theatres. The Princess Royal Theatre, as most members will be aware, has stayed open in some form right through the pandemic. We've been offering the Welsh transfusion service, the blood service, on a regular basis. Have been using the Princess Royal Theatre. It's also played host to a number, hundreds of training events, both internally within the council and some externally, particularly around new ways of working with the cleaning section, health and safety, etc. The venue has been working very closely with the health and safety section of the council over the last few weeks, and the first live performance within the county borough will go on in the theatre are starting from the 26th of July, where we have a private hire of the venue, and it's a production called Camwyth, which will be our first socially distanced play. It's based around the life of Dick Penderyn, and the company will be working closely with the theatre staff and health and safety to make sure all regulations with regard to COVID bubbles, social distance, etc., will apply. You know, to give you an example of where we are with theatres, the Princess Royal is just short of 900 seats. Under the present restriction, we can sell 145. So a number of the artists bumped their shows to 2022, although some of the big stars who we attract through the comedian range, they are continuing to sell tickets. So tickets are on sale, but I'm sure it'll be subject to the government's regulation. Untitled Chapter Art Centre, that opened properly last week. We brought classes back during evenings for dance, music, drama, etc. Again, worked very closely with health and safety on the risk assessments, etc., to allow these activities to come back. And last week we had our first cinema showing within the main auditorium. Again, socially distanced, and our user numbers are restricted there to 45 within that venue. But again, we had a good turnout for cinema. Members are aware of the proposal for the cinema new development upon our art centre. There will be a report going to Cabinet this week regarding that proposal. Libraries, again, library staff have worked outstandingly during this period of time. We now, all libraries have resumed full opening hours, and we are now offering normal access within the guidelines. Access to the internet, photocopying books, and we do have a bookable study space in the libraries, which is now available to members of the public. But as I said, it's got to be pre-booked. In common with other authorities in Wales, usage is increasing on a monthly basis, but it's currently around 40% of pre-COVID usage of the libraries. But that is starting to build as public become more confident in A, going out, and B, going into public buildings. The e-books and e-audio, as well as call and collect, are very, very popular, as you can imagine. And we are doing virtual visits to schools with our schools officer, and our community libraries have started to reopen, and Wayne John, the county librarian, is very supportive when it comes to the community libraries and shares all best practice with these community groups. Another area of mine, Chair, physical activity and sports service, known as PASS. At the start of the pandemic, most of the staff, all staff transferred to either TTP or volunteer food packing or community engagement. Once they returned towards the summer, they spent most of the summer developing mountain bike trails in Margam Park in preparation for physical activity in the outdoor, which is what we all believe is going to be the future for the next year or two. We've started a new mountain bike club at the park for junior riders. And during the summer, Chair, we will be offering a 6-week programme right across the county borough with sports camps, Pass in the Park, which is our new brand for activities within the park. You know, for example, we've been running dodgeball at Talbot in Memorial Park. And again, it's all proven very, very successful. Young people are coming out and we are in the outdoors, which is, as we all know, is far, far safer.
Paul, I'm going to have to stop
Chris.
you there, mate. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you to bring Mike in now because I'm conscious we've only got 15 minutes left, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was going to get to Margam Park, but there we are. No problem. My apologies.
No, it's no problem. Can I bring Mike in, please, now for an update on curriculum reform?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. So I coordinate school improvement, 14 to 19, Welsh language support, vulnerable learners service, looked after children, and the music service. And the headlines from me, as far as school and curriculum is concerned, we still have in our fortnightly head teacher meetings. We meet with all primary, secondary and special school heads, with Andrew Thomas and head service as well. It's mostly around COVID and operational guidance, but also, of course, other wider issues to do with the schools. We still have our triage service, so schools are ringing us on a daily basis with relation to COVID. But things like support for additional funding that has come in, and we are supporting schools with that. As far as in schools, it's the centre determined grades, the CDGs, which have dominated, certainly for 15 and 16-year-olds doing examinations. That process has drawn to a close now, but with the appeals process, it's fair to say that staff and pupils are exhausted by the whole process, and it's been an extremely challenging, unprecedented situation. And I suppose talking to head teachers, particularly secondary school, is the concern that that we remember that these are unprecedented. It's been an unprecedented experience for our youngsters and for our teachers. One of the other things to talk about is the National Evaluation and Improvement Resource. This is a resource that's been developed by Estyn, the Inspectorate, Welsh Government, and other bodies, and we played a big part in this. It's a tool that all schools are going to have come the autumn term to help them carry out evaluation in schools, to find out what they do well and what they need to do better. We've had a number of meetings with Estyn to help shape and refine this, and those meetings are ongoing. As far as the new curriculum is concerned and curriculum reform, I know I presented to members recently in a seminar about the curriculum for Wales. Where schools are at the moment is developing a vision and trialing different approaches. So as a school improvement team, one of the things that we're doing is supporting schools with a year-long strategic approach to developing children as thinkers. And we believe that the only way that we can realise the purposes of the new curriculum is by developing children's ability to be higher order thinkers. And that's something that we're doing with all of our schools. We're also meeting regularly and frequently with colleagues in other local authorities, one to share best practice and two to learn and listen to what each other is doing. So, for example, this week we are meeting the team from Swansea and sharing ideas as we move towards curriculum reform. As far as 14 to 19, which is an area we cover as well, the 14 to 19 manager Karen Thomas has worked giving advice for schools and guidance when doing the centre determined grades, supporting schools with transition from Key Stage 3 to Key Stage 4, Key Stage 4 to Key Stage 5, and on to university. She's also played a significant role in developing the digital SEREN programme. So this is for our most able children in schools, the SEREN project. And it is there have been online digital classes for these children that have taken place. They've been able to access them from right across the globe, from included Oxford and Cambridge University and many of the Welsh universities. And students have had the opportunity to attend an 8-week masterclass programme of AS standard work for when they're in year 10. Okay, and Karen has taken on a role, which we're very proud of. She's taken on a role with Welsh Government now as the SEREN Foundation lead for Welsh Government. So that benefits Neath Talbot enormously in its recognition of the good work she does. As far as leadership is concerned, we've continued to provide Neath Talbot staff with access to the national programmes. For example, national middle leaders, senior leaders, aspiring head teacher programmes. And we've also been developing a coaching and mentoring culture where we're delivering a national coaching and mentoring project across all of our schools. And currently 59 senior leaders within Neath Talbot have undertaken a programme focused on developing their coaching and mentoring skills. And that would be more than any other local authority in Wales.
1 minute, Mike, please.
Okay, our Welsh second language team have continued to support schools with all their resources and sharing those resources. Our vulnerable learners service have continued to support schools and learners during the pandemic. particularly new arrivals, as new arrivals have continued during this period. Our looked after children coordinator has continued to work in partnership with the adoption agencies and redesigned education plans in line with ALN reform. And finally, our music service has continued throughout the lockdown with online lessons, holding exams for children, which have been very challenging. We've got 54 exam candidates booked in for the 4th of July, and there's been a phased return to music centres with small ensembles from June the 9th, and hopefully for a full return in September. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Chair, with just 10 minutes to go for questions, I'd like to, if it's all right with you, bring Paul Walker back in just for a minute's overview on Margam Park and its crucial role that it has played. Paul?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Margam is still hosting the vaccination centre, and it is going extremely well. And I think the staff at Margam, and particularly the Orangery staff, have really done the council proud in the way they've worked with health in delivering the centre, and it has been held up across Wales as best practice. The main thing with Margam is it's open. We are having vehicles booking in via Eventbrite. We're extending the number of vehicles in the summer up to 600 a day, and you can now book them on the day, not just the night before. And the other thing, success for Margam during the pandemic, is the amount of filming we've done. We've done a huge amount of filming, more than we've ever done in a period of time like this, and certainly in a 12 months. So again, Margam's now established itself as a venue for films and movies. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. I don't know where the time limit was imposed from, but that was certainly a tour de force roundup of all of the services. I'm not seeing any questions. Has anybody, if people would like to indicate if they have anything they wanted further information on? But I'm also just wanting to say for myself, congratulations, particularly on the counselling service achievements, Rhian, on the attendance levels and IT support work that's gone on throughout the pandemic. Also on seeing venues reopening and the libraries back and available to people. I mean, they've been doing good work throughout the pandemic online, but it's not been the same, and that's beginning to show benefits of those things coming back. And public access to venues, and in particular, Paul, Margam Park, and the work that's gone on there. So I can only say congratulations on all of that, and just remind members that what was said about Pontardawe Leisure Centre and other things, the members of Culture and Leisure Subcommittee have been invited to Cabinet Board later in the week, or to Cabinet Scrutiny later in the week, in relation to items coming up. So please, we need to consider getting involved with that, so we remain updated about what's going on and involved in the decisions. Peter, okay. Can I ask you to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate again, my thanks to all the staff and the officers for everything that they've been doing over the last 16 months in this difficult period. I think the standards of education over this period in Neath Talbot has been maintained, I don't think we could have done much more, quite frankly. And I think congratulations to everyone. I just wanted to announce I had a report this morning about a new venture by the youth service. They are going to open virtually at the moment a youth club in the Swansea Amman Valley area. It'll be open to anyone over 11 to 18, and of course non-speaking Welsh people, Welsh pupils can also join, but this is a real good indication of us as a council trying to promote the Welsh language. And to try to meet the targets that the Welsh Government has set for 1 million Welsh speakers or whatever by 2030, I think it is, isn't it? Whatever it is. So that's a real good news story, and I hope that if the press are here, I hope that they go into feature that as a real good initiative of Neath Talbot. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. I noticed as well that our Youth Council managed to celebrate Youth Week, and that there's been some excellent work going on. I'm aware from contacts of my own throughout the period with the youth service. Charlotte, you have your hand up.
Yes, Chair, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt officers earlier when they were presenting. It's just for the purpose of the recording. Councillor Jane Jones joined the meeting earlier on, so it's just purely for the attendance, that's all, Chair.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Sandra Miller, Councillor Sandra Miller.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You know, we've done some, well, not we, the officers and the whole staff have done a tremendous amount of work, and it is well appreciated. My question is, and I'm not sure who's going to answer it, but we have a number of different organisations within Neath Talbot that do this private education. And I use the word education loosely, where a number of go into these homes. We have one in my area, and I was just wondering how they are being caught up on. They technically not ours, because I know the safeguarding elements are with the SIW or whatever it is, but concerned because technically under the new regulations we will be responsible for their education. Can somebody just update me, or at least get some information on how they are doing? Thank you, Chair.
No problem, Chair. We'll work on that for you.
So that will come. Can you circulate anything to all members, please, Chris? Or thank you. Okay. Any further questions? I must admit one thing I'd like. I mean, we're due in the next couple of during the next meetings an update on the youth service, which will be informative. So that we'll look forward to. But although I lost signal at the beginning, I'm not sure if we had anything about childcare or early years at the start. I was thrown out of the meeting early on.
No, we didn't, Chair. We would just have run out of time. Yeah.
Is it possible that we can schedule an update on that, knowing that we've had some interesting developments during, and impacts during COVID and during the pandemic? So looking at where that's going and how we're coping within the county, etc.
I'll link in with Charlotte, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right. With no other questions, if we then move to the forward work programme. This is for noting if anybody's got any issues to raise. I see none, so therefore urgent items, I have none. So it remains simply to say thank you to the staff for a very, very rapid and excellent roundup of where we are. And we're very grateful to you and look forward to seeing people at the next meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Goodbye. Close the meeting.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.